Good afternoon, everybody. This is Chris Scully and Matt Winslow coming to you from Drive. And today we have Jimmy Holman from Earhart's Collision Repair in Wenatchee, Washington. Welcome, Jimmy.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
All right. So you've been at the shop now for how long?
This is going on 6 years.
Going on 6 years. And we were talking just before we came on the air about the transition that you're going through or have been going through over the last year. And let's talk about that a little bit. But let's start with the fact that you mentioned just before we went on the air that you came from the insurance, an insurance background.
Yeah, I started in the industry in 1982, going to college, and then started working in the shops until 96, where I had an opportunity to go to work for State Farm. And then, so it's just shy of 22 years with State Farm as an auto estimator there. And things started changing in that world in these rural markets where they were doing everything virtual. And I worked the last year and a half out of my house, and the car that I had to use sat in the driveway for almost 11 months without ever being moved. And it was pretty easy to see the handwriting on the wall, what was coming.
Right.
So at that time, Earhart's was owned by two brothers and their wives, Brendan and Eric and Lisa and Lene. And Brendan had pretty much figured out that something was coming as well. And Brendan had always been on me about getting on the State Farm program, and it just wasn't an option back then. But he quickly found out that I knew about 6 months in advance that I was going to be leaving State Farm. And my only option was either to move to Arizona to take a job with them, to finish my career with them, or do something else. And he quickly called me and set up a meeting to tell me that he's not moving, or I'm not moving to Arizona, that you're coming to work for me. And was gracious enough to let me stay with State Farm until the end date so I could get a nice severance package. And then jumped right in here and just kind of hit the ground running. And it's been very good. In the last 5 years, we've done nothing but grow greatly every year. Even through the last 2 years of COVID, it's been the last 2 years have been the best years of the company.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Now you're in a pretty small town right in the middle of Washington State, and you mentioned that there's your shop and I think one other in the town.
Actually, no, that's just what the State Farm program has.
Oh, okay.
There's
Sorry.
actually more body shops than we need, other than just this year. I'm not sure exactly what's going on nationwide this year. We have about 13 shops in the greater area for collision alone, and everybody is 6 to 8 weeks out.
Wow.
And currently we're booking the last week of February.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And now COVID's brought challenges for everybody in the industry, but with the supply chain issues that are affecting the whole country and all kinds of different issues, we were talking about you guys have some challenges along that line as far as getting parts as well. How are you dealing with that?
Before COVID, I was ordering parts on Wednesday, the week before cars would come in on the first of the week. And then about 6 months into it, I was ordering on Tuesday. And then a few months later, I was ordering on a Monday, a full week before. And I was told pretty quickly to don't do it any earlier than that by the parts vendors, because it's not going to guarantee you that they're going to get them any faster. And then it ends up being a cash flow situation too. If you start ordering too far in advance, so you just got money out there, and it inevitably, when you tear one apart, you're going to find something else anyway.
Right.
And then you're just crossing your fingers and toes that part's not one of the ones that's back ordered.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're sometimes months before you find it, or you find another alternative to try and figure out where to get that part. And that's usually what we end up having to do.
Can we talk about that just for a second? So I know that some of that, for example, I've got a good friend that's got a pretty large body shop as well. And he's had cars sit on lots for stupid stuff like a molding. So how does that impact your cash flow? Are you able to get some of that money up front, or with cars sitting on the lot that long?
You know, we haven't had to go there yet. I'm sure we could if we needed to, but we're lucky enough to be in a situation where we haven't had to go there. Just for instance, I've got a Honda CRV here that I'm waiting for an airbag on. The car's done, painted, put together, but I need the driver's airbag, and I've had it sitting done, waiting for the airbag for 3.5 months.
Wow.
Can't deliver it without the airbag in it.
Yeah.
How is insurance handling that with the whole 30 days for the rental car thing? Is that creating customer conflicts or?
It's more of a conflict with us. Like, why aren't you got the car done? I'm having to have that conversation a lot where I'm not sure what they expect us to do. And customers have literally said, well, just have the insurance company find you the part. And that's an interesting conversation.
Wave the magic wand.
Yeah. And so I just let the customers call the insurance company like they say they're going to, and then they can tell them themselves, because they don't seem to believe me all the time.
Yeah.
And that's probably the biggest thing between the fact that the parts aren't there and they don't believe me that I'm telling them what I'm telling them is the truth, and the fact that you're never going to make them all happy. And
Right.
You just got to do the best you can and try and come up with some kind of a resolution that's in everybody's interest. And you just got to be honest with them and work through it.
Yeah, that's actually a really important point, is the honesty and the forthright communication with the customer. And I know that when I was coaching your shop, which was not that long ago, that was something that we put a lot of attention on always. Because it's such an important way to deal with all kinds of issues, is just make sure the customers are in the loop and that you're telling them the truth, and that you come up with reasonable handlings for whatever problems come up. And I know that too many people, when they deal with this industry in general, one of the biggest complaints is they don't get any communication. So it's good that you guys are at least keeping your customers in the loop.
Yeah. And some of them, even at that, you gotta, it's a game you got to figure out, and sometimes just a matter of a couple minutes when you meet the customer, and try and figure out which one of those are the ones where you literally have to hold their hand and call them daily or every other day, way more than others. Some of them definitely need more hands-on care to be taken care of.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yep. And some of them, sometimes you just have to fire a customer.
Yeah, and that's also something that you should never be afraid to do as a shop owner, because sometimes you have those customers that no matter what you do, you can't do anything right. And that's not good for you. It's not good for the customer. And if you want to tell them, maybe this other shop is better fit for you, then it's all good.
Yeah, if it's a problem before you even bring it in the shop while you're still waiting for parts, it's probably not going to be any better all the way through it. And
that's right.
yeah, I don't have a problem.
I heard a great definition of the difference between a customer and a parasite. So a customer, by definition, is someone willing to pay your price for products and services you provide. A parasite is an organism that sucks the life out of another organism without contributing anything to sustain the life of its host. And I've met one or two of those folks.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's funny how when you maintain a standard for your shop about how you want your relationships with your customers to go, and you have everybody on the same page, you tend to minimize the amount of those, as you said, Matt, those parasite type people, because they just don't seem to stick. It's a really interesting phenomenon that I've seen actually across a lot of industries.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a question that every single body shop owner is desperately wanting to hear from you. And you can say no comment if you want, sir, but every one of us has the same question. Okay. So you used to be on the estimating side for State Farm, and obviously an insurance company's fiduciary responsibility is to shareholders, and they try and reduce the cost of the repair. Okay. I mean, that's just normal. And now you're on the other side where you're trying to get as much money as you can. Obviously the car is damaged the way the car is damaged, but can you share any differences in perspective from being on the other side of the fence to how you are now?
Honestly, I can tell you with dealing with all the insurances companies on this side now, I always slept very good at night when I was working with State Farm, knowing that I paid every dime I owed. I can't say that from this side of the fence, dealing with some of the other insurance companies, the way I have to fight for every dime to make sure the customers are taken care of. I'll leave it at that.
Fair enough. That's
That's
very.
a very diplomatic answer. But yeah, I can totally see it. Absolutely. Now, since you guys have made the transition with Brennan moving, and you're now actually, I guess you guys are kind of still in the middle of that to a large degree. How's that gone, and what are you looking forward to going into the future?
The future is very bright. Like I said, we told you earlier, we're very blessed, one, to have an incredible book of business, and it just keeps on growing constantly. And I never thought, and I've never seen, when I was doing all the State Farm work around here, I've never seen a time where one or two shops have been more than 3 or 4 weeks out around here. And to have all of the shops, not just the big shops, but all of the shops be 6 to 8 weeks out is just incredible. And it's not just because of the parts situation. This town, from when I moved up here and moved over here from the western side of the state in '82, has more than doubled in population. And the roads that are here, they really can't do anything to fix them. And the population is, like I said, blown up and grown so fast. And the patients certainly haven't grown as fast as the population has. So you better pay attention when you're driving. And there's just so many more wrecks. We've got some really good shops up here. We do. There's a lot of us that are prideful in the fact that we're better than others, and we really work hard at that. But that's probably the biggest thing, is that we've got a great business. Before Brennan left, the year before he left, he started an automotive service as well. So we have that incorporated in here as well. And I stole a good buddy of mine, Tony Gott, out of retirement, who had run a collision repair shop for a number of years. And he'd done a parts person at a Chevrolet dealership for a number of years as well. And I'd already talked to him about the fact that with Brendan gone, I made a day off, so you're gonna have to come fill in for me. And I called him up one day and I said, yeah, I need a few more days than just a day here or there. He says, what do you mean? I said, I need you for a service writer. Oh, okay, I can do that. And he's taken the service shop part of it and doubled it in a year.
That's great.
From what I was doing the year before. So that side of things going, we hired a new mechanic from the one we had before, and he's doing fantastic right out of school. So he's barely a year in it right out of school and loves it. And so, yeah, we're extremely bright on that part of it. All the guys in the shop, or one or two of them are over 40. The rest of them are in their late 20s. So like I said, we've got a very young crew coming out of a lot of the shops in town. The new guy here, this my estimator, we've had conversations about the fact that we are looking for somebody to take this place and run with it. I don't plan on selling it when I want to get out of here. And that the opportunity is there if he wants to roll with it. And Lisa's the same way. So yeah, things are good. You know, Brennan had been with Drive for a long, long time. And when I started going to classes and started seeing what was going on, it was a no-brainer to buy into this program. And just in the 6 years that I've been here, not that it's me, but the business has nearly doubled itself in the collision side alone in 6 years.
That's great. Now, let me ask you a couple other questions along that line, as far as the crew that you have and the culture you have there, because you have a unique, in my opinion anyway, leaning toward a younger crew, where, many shops will have a mix, and some shop owners, let's face it, we're older, you and the three of us on this call, than that. And I hear from a lot of shop owners how difficult it is to deal with these younger employees, but yours is working really well. What do you attribute that to?
They all just want a chance. For instance, my detail kid, he never been around a body shop, hardly ever worked around a car. He worked as just a detail person for a year and a half. And one day we were shorthanded. We had a couple extra cars, and I said, take that bumper off the back of that Honda. And he had never even touched tools hardly, let alone trying to figure out how to car. And we showed him how to get into all data and see the pictures and a diagram and instructions on how to do it. He got it figured out. And so he had him paint the bumper. And he says, okay. I said, you got that bumper on yet? Oh, you want me to put it back on? We just had no clue what was next,
Yeah.
And then I asked him, I said, so what do you think? He says, yeah, that was fun. I'd love to do more of that. I said, okay, because you're going to. And it was late fall. So Brennan and I ponied up some money and bought him a basic tool set for Christmas. And it was funny because he got a little teary-eyed when we gave it to him, because that's the first time he'd ever gotten tools like that. And now he's averaging between 12 and 18 hours a week and doing all of our detailing, doing those jobs, and would love to get me to hire another detailer so he can do more of that and or go full-time as just a teardown guy and doing those small parts change jobs.
That is fantastic. That's a
In
great
the
story.
process of hiring a prepper. We've been looking for a prepper forever, and I got one on the hook now from the skill center at the high school that has a 4-year body shop class, and he's a fantastic little painter. That's what he really wants to do, is be a painter. And as you know, those guys are hard to find.
Yeah,
kind of like a unicorn.
right.
And
Especially if they're out of jail.
yeah, so and my body guy really doesn't like to do the priming and blocking before it goes to the paint shop. And that's an obvious way to get him here and have him still have a paint gun in his hand, but not actually spray color for a while.
Yep,
And
yep.
he's all on board there too. So it's kind of a win-win to get him here. Right now, he'll come in the afternoons for 4 hours a day until he graduates this June, and then start full-time in the summer.
And let me
That's
ask you a couple
great.
of questions along those lines, because you just you hit something else. It's probably the biggest pain across the United States, probably in Canada as well. So 2 questions. The first one is, what are you doing to even get these young kids to give you a chance to talk to them, to come work for you? And I personally think Tools Today is a huge barrier to entry for young people. Do you have like a suggested amount for a basic toolbox to get someone going that the shop could provide?
I don't have an amount. We ended up just for Zach, our detail guy, we just went down to Lowe's, and they had this basic wrench and socket 3/8 drive and 1/4 inch drive set. I think it was like $125 on sale. And it wasn't everything that he needed, but it was enough to give him a basic start. And then he's gone and bought some pry bars and clip tools and stuff like that on his own since then. But as far as finding the kids, I've been directly involved with the Skills Center for the body shop as a board member for, I don't know, probably 12 years before I came here. And then also help run the Skills USA competitions for them as well. So I've been out there in the program for that long. So I get to see the kids. I know the instructor. I used to work with the instructor before he was an instructor in a body shop. And so that's a nice little in. And for anybody that's looking, don't overlook those kids, because there's a lot of them that go there just to get out of regular classes. And I get that.
Mhm.
But there's always 2 or 3 every year that want to do this and just flat love it. And that's where Andre is. He wants to do this as a career. And I will give any of them a chance that I can. I've had another one here that we did that with about 4 years ago, back the first year I was here, hired him, and he ended up moving over to be with his wife in the Seattle market. and has done fantastic over there working for another shop. And he was doing, when he left here, he was hanging quarters. I mean, within 2.5 years. So they're hungry, and I was pushing him pretty hard on some of the jobs I gave him, but that's what they want. You're not going to learn. And when I started, I came out of trade school in '84 and went to work for a Nissan dealership, and they threw me into the wolves with the used car market. So I was their used car paint guy, and I was doing 2 completes a day with old sticky enamel. And
Wow.
back in those days, it was pretty rough. He literally was, basically a bar soap and Comet. You go to town and scuff the thing up and shoot it with sticky enamel, because if it lasted out of the parking lot, that was all needed back in those days. Excuse me. But and so the body shop owner didn't really know me out of school at all. So he would tell me to get a prep to go in there, and he'd come in and he'd watch me spray, and then he'd put the last coat on just to make sure it looked good. And so this one day, after about a month of doing that, he said, all right, go over there and get started. And so I had the first coat on, and let it flash, and said, all right, it's ready for the second coat. He said, all right, just go in there and get started. Well, I got in there, I started putting the last coat on, and it's like, well, you coming or what? It never did show up. So I just finished it. And I'll never forget it. That was the time that I'd learned that you can see a dry spot from a mile away, but you can't see a run until you're on top of it.
That's
So
it.
I forgot the second coat on one spot on this door, and we could buff it out, but it was fine. But I finally asked him, I said, so why didn't you come in to finish this? He says, you had to figure it out sooner or later. I wasn't going to babysit you all the time. And that's just how it worked, So you just got to do it and let them fall off their training wheels sooner or later and get it going. And that's what I did. I painted a lot of cars my second year of school, and had a lot of fun painting.
Jimmy, your attitude when it comes to that and bringing people along is so important. And I really want to actually acknowledge that, because too many times I talk to people about developing techs, especially young guys, and the impatience is usually what wins over the necessity to allow them to learn. But when you invest in them like you have, you come up with a really good crew of guys whose confidence is very high, because you've allowed them to grow under your supervision, but you've let them learn the way they needed to learn. So that's really well done. I really admire that quite a bit.
Well, and some of that's I've learned from Brennan too when he was here. One of the things we have issues with, especially through the growing pains of getting so busy here in the last year, is stuff gets misplaced or broken. And it's like, okay, what do we do here? Do we take it out of their paycheck? I'd love to take it out of their paycheck, especially when they lose stuff. It just drives me nuts, especially when we've got the carts, we've got the bins on the carts to put the small stuff in. It's like, how do you lose that stuff, But then again, it's like, in the overall picture, is it really worth making them mad
by
taking it out of their paycheck versus just saying, come on, man, you're killing them here, and just reminding them to do better. Because it's not a huge part of the business. Is it a part of it? And does it need to, if it happens a lot, then we're gonna have a serious conversation.
Sure.
But as long as it's not happening on every car, and it doesn't, it's not even every month, but sometimes it gets a little bit crazy when it's something that, how did you lose that?
Right.
Where did it go? And it's all right, let's tear the shop apart until we see for sure that it's not here, and go from there.
That's great. All right. We are coming up on our time. Boy, it's amazing how fast this little half hour can go. Jimmy, I want to thank you so much for joining us. It's been a great conversation. And for all of you guys out there who are in need of techs, really pay attention to the fact that you can develop young talent, and you can develop it quickly by, first of all, getting plugged in with your local schools, get to know these kids and give them a chance and get them going that way. That's a great way to develop technicians for any type of shop. So well done on that to Jimmy. And next week, our show, we're going to be talking about marketing for the new year. And are you ready for that? With a special guest from Drive, Brian Dorado, will be joining us then. So everybody have a great weekend, and we will see you next week.
Thank you.